What's the FBI doing to investigate the other people that were involved in these sex trafficking rings?
Well, I'm not sure that I can confirm any specific individual.
Well, the FBI and other federal agencies have raided his houses. Do you have those tapes?
Again, I can't discuss the specifics of our law enforcement operations related to Mr. Epstein.
That was Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana questioning FBI Director Chris Wray about the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, and really calling it an investigation is a joke in and of itself. At this point, both Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein were charged and convicted for sex trafficking crimes, and it's a well-known fact that they were trafficking girls to high-profile and powerful men around the world. But yet, no one other than those two has been arrested in connection with these crimes. So even if you're a complete idiot that buys into the government propaganda that they sell us, you would still have to think that's a little odd. Where it becomes nefarious on the part of the investigators is the fact that if you look into this case, there are multiple people that you can confirm were involved in the entire thing.
The Epstein documents were released today, making public the names of almost 200 people associated with disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. A court released the unredacted names that include some anticipated names like former President Bill Clinton.
Sometimes there were other people on the island that were important people. I saw Bill Clinton sitting with Jeffrey on the living room porch area, which was Jeffrey's favorite spot.
Prince Andrew.
She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have bath, possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time, and that was, oh actually, yes, I didn't sweat at the time because I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at, and I simply it was almost impossible for me to sweat, and it's only because I have done a number of things in the recent past that I'm starting to be able to do that again. So I'm afraid to say that there's a medical condition that says that I didn't do it, so therefore.
And Limited Brands founder Lex Wexner.
Epstein worked as Les Wexner's personal finance manager in the 90s. A document on file in Franklin County shows Epstein was given power of attorney over much of Wexner's financial affairs in 1991.
Actually, the reports are, at least, that Mr. Wexner gave him this really expensive townhouse here.
Yeah. So there was a transfer of the townhouse. It's very blurry if you look at how that happened for zero, and then there was payment. It's unclear, the money trail. And then also, don't forget, he also transferred the jet over, a Boeing 727.
Some notable new names include lawyer and law professor Alan Dershowitz.
I saw Alan Dershowitz on the island. It was more of a business meeting.
So here's the full interaction between Wray and Kennedy, and for the most part it's just Wray doing what he always does when he doesn't want to answer a question. He says he can't talk about it because it's an ongoing investigation. It's just a coincidence that this ongoing investigation that he's referencing will not charge anybody.
We know that Jeffrey Epstein, who is now deceased, and Ms. Maxwell, his associate, who's in prison, were engaged in a conspiracy of sex trafficking with minors. So were others. It's been widely reported. What's the FBI doing to investigate the other people that were involved in these sex trafficking rings?
Well, I'm not sure that I can confirm any specific individual.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me give you some facts, widely reported. Jeffrey Epstein had video surveillance in all of his homes and on his private island. And there have been articles after articles from witnesses who have said he videotaped sex acts with prominent people because he was trying to incur, with young girls that he had procured to try to incur favor with those prominent people and potentially to be able to blackmail them. Now, that's a fact. And the FBI and other federal agencies have raided his houses. Do you have those tapes?
Again, I can't discuss the specifics of our law enforcement operations related to Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell, but obviously we had very active investigation related to both of them. But whether it extends to other people, I'm not sure that's something that I can comment on.
A suit was filed yesterday against one of those prominent people by one of the young women sex trafficked, allegedly, said he was part of the ring. It's on the front page, I don't know, is this New York Times, Wall Street Journal? And we keep seeing article after article after article, and we keep hearing about prominent person after prominent person after prominent person. I just want to know if these prominent people are above the law and are going to be, and aren't being investigated, or is the FBI investigating them?
Well, no one is above the law, number one. As to whether specific people are being investigated, that's not something that I, as I'm sure you can appreciate, can engage on here. We've devoted significant resources to the investigation.
Is it ongoing?
I'm not sure there's anything I can share with you on that, but let me see if we can get back to you and provide a little more information.
Well, for example, these allegations in this lawsuit, the civil action.
Yeah, I haven't seen
You ought to read
the article.
It'll trigger your gag reflex. Is the FBI going to investigate that?
Well, again, I haven't seen the article, but I would be happy to take a look at it and take it back and see if it's part of something
I'd
we're
just
already
like to
working on.
know.
I share your.
Yeah, is the FBI still investigating this, or are these prominent people going to go scot-free?
I'm not sure that I can tell you whether or not there is ongoing work being devoted to this. I would be happy to take a look at the specific article. I share your disgust at Mr. Epstein's conduct and Ms. Maxwell's conduct.
And others.
The whole operation.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. Sorry, Martin. You're a fine American anyway.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
On a similar note, I want to show you what happened when Senator Marsha Blackburn tried to get the Epstein flight logs. At first, Democrats shut it down, and then Dick Durbin played ignorant when he was asked about it. And as far as I know, in the months following this interaction, nothing has happened regarding this. Which comes as no surprise when you consider that if the truth came out about the situation, then that would mean a lot of very powerful and rich people would be getting in some serious trouble. If you're someone that believes that could potentially ever happen, I wouldn't hold your breath. The only way to continue the unconstitutional government that exists in DC is to have corrupt or blackmailed bureaucrats and politicians running that government.
And since we're in the business of issuing subpoenas now, here are a few more that I've filed. A subpoena to Jeffrey Epstein's estate to provide the flight logs for his private plane, given the numerous allegations of human trafficking and sexual abuse surrounding Mr. Epstein. I think it is very important that we identify everybody that was on that plane and how many trips they took on that plane and the destinations to which they arrived.
Yesterday, we told you how the number 2 Senate Dem, Dick Durbin, blocked a vote to subpoena Epstein's flight logs. Durbin claimed he wasn't blocking the subpoena, they just ran out of time. Well, the Senate was back today and they didn't vote on the subpoena. We asked his office why, and they said, again, the timing. But Dick wasn't even ready to hold a vote. He was in Chicago, cutting a ribbon at a battery plant.
Chairman Durbin, can I ask you a quick question? Why won't you subpoena Jeffrey Epstein's flight logs?
So who are you?
Hillary Vaughn with Fox.
With Fox, of course. I don't know anything about his flight logs.
But why won't you subpoena them? Why don't you want to know?
I don't know the issue. I know who Epstein was, but I certainly don't know anything about the issue.
Well, he was charged with sex trafficking, so why don't you want to know who was utilizing his private plane?
Never been raised by anyone.
Well, Senator Blackburn has wanted to subpoena them, and there hasn't been a vote in your committee.
Said a word to me, not a word.
But aren't you curious, like, what high-profile or powerful people might be closeted predators and pedophiles? Doesn't that concern you?
Of course.
So why won't you subpoena them if you can?
It's the first time anyone has raised it. Thank you, Fox.
So are you curious about it? Will you do it?
Durbin's a liar. Last week, Primetime asked his office why he was blocking votes to subpoena Epstein's flight logs, and they said there wasn't enough time. And then at today's hearing, Durbin complained that Fox was asking him to investigate sex trafficking. Poor little Dick. Durbin.
Senator Blackburn, before you leave, I want to make a point for the record, since I understand you made some statements about the Jeffrey Epstein flight logs. There's a Fox reporter in the hallway who asked me about this, and I said I had not spoken to you one time about this issue. I think you'll back me up on that. I'm not mistaken. I didn't know that this was even a subject of your amendments, which, if you'll recall, you were the first on the list until the 2-hour rule was invoked. I don't know anything about this request on your part. I'll be happy to discuss it with you. But I haven't done any discussion with you to this point, correct?
Mr. Chairman, I know, and I think you're fully aware that I had 2 amendments, one dealing with Epstein and Sotomayor. I'd brought it up previously.
I have to confess I didn't know that you'd offer that amendment. Happy to discuss it with you, but I want to point on the record. You and I have never personally discussed this, have we?
We talked briefly on the floor at the conclusion.
You never mentioned what the subject matter of your amendment was. You said you wanted to offer
in committee, I brought up the subject matter of my amendments.
Not in my
3
presence.
weeks.
Not only was the subject matter brought up in Durbin's presence, Senator Blackburn was speaking directly to him.
I seek recognition.
Senator Blackburn.
Since we're in the business of issuing subpoenas now, here are a few more that I've filed. A subpoena to Jeffrey Epstein's estate to provide the flight logs for his private plane.
Thank you, Senator. When I recognized you, I didn't know what subject you wished to speak to. As I announced at the beginning, the first thing we'll consider the 2 judicial nominations, then we will move to the subpoena.
All right, so we caught him lying. First, there wasn't enough time. Then this was the first time he was hearing about it. Then it was never brought up in his presence. Why is Dick playing dumb?
In looking at some of the survivors from the Epstein issues, there are disturbing allegations that the FBI failed to investigate the sex trafficking allegations. And indeed, one survivor says that the FBI, even after she brought forward repeatedly content about his conduct, that the FBI refused to investigate her claims, even though she said the allegations were there on both the sex trafficking and the child sexual abuse material. And I want to know why or what awareness you have of the FBI's failure to investigate these claims. And I want to get you on the record, since numerous survivors have said the FBI did not show up to help them. What specifically has the FBI done to investigate the claims that Epstein's and others participated in, produced, possessed, and distributed CSAM?
Well, first, let me say I recall very well that you have a very specific and longstanding interest, not just in child sexual exploitation, but in human trafficking as a cousin of that. And we appreciate your focus on it and your support of the importance of that part of our mission. As to the Epstein case specifically, I will tell you it's been a while since I looked at that case. Obviously, we worked together with prosecutors to bring charges before he...
I realize that.
Yeah.
But what we need from you is a complete investigation of why the FBI did not take this up, and then getting to the bottom of what is appearing to be an enormous sex trafficking ring, and listening to these survivors. You know, and as I said, I've tried to get a subpoena on the flight logs, which I think is important to this. I think people need to know who was on those planes and how often they were on those planes. I think people who invest in companies would want to know if there are people from their C-suite. And as we go through this, Should those logs be made public? They've been heavily redacted.
Well, as I said, it's been a while since I looked at the specific case. I can tell you that we've been increasing year over year both the number of agents focused on these kinds of cases, the number of victims we've rescued, and so onto this specific case. Let me offer to have let me get with my team and figure out if there's more information we can provide to you.
That would be great. Yeah. We have never, even through the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, we never got to the bottom of this, and we have these survivors who say, oh, there is so much more.
It hides in plain sight. Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing. But we had no one that was, legal aspect that would go after him. They were afraid of him. For whatever reason, they were afraid of him.